Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome back to the Watchtower Database, where we talk all things DC animated universe. Well, most of it. These cartoons originally spanned 14 years from 1992 to 2006, with recent revisits to the world that brought us back to that classic Bruce Timm style, and introduced new faces to old stories. Faces like Green Lantern Jessica Cruz, Argus, and even the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yes, there was a recent comic where Batman crossed over with the good old TMNT, and it wasn't even the first of its kind. But over the course of the DCAU's existence, past the obvious main players, there were plenty of characters we only ever heard about or had super subtle references to. A couple years back, we did a whole video on all the hidden heroes of this universe. Super dudes who we know exist in the DCAU, but we never actually saw. From Beast Boy to Power Girl to Static Son. Don't worry, he was not his 15-year-old self from Static Shock when the child was conceived, I don't think anyway. But today we're going to be doing basically the same thing, but with villains. The super bad people we know via name drop, wink and nudge, or other allusion do exist in the world of Batman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, etc., but never actually got their chance to shine on screen. Some you may know, and others that may come as quite the surprise. Or you know all of them, I don't know who you are, I have no way of telling. Let's get started!
Showtime, everybody!
Engagement.
They can talk all they like.
That means everything.
Don't forget that. You heard it, folks!
Victor Zsasz. Throughout the Batman cartoons, we got adaptations of pretty much every classic Batman villain you can think of. The Joker, the Riddler, Two-Face, Penguin, Poison Ivy, Scarecrow, the list goes on and on and on. But one such supervillain who commonly ranks among people's best bat baddies never did appear on the show. Victor Zsasz. If you don't know him by name, you certainly know him by appearance. Mr. Zazz's MO is slicing tally marks into his skin for every murder he commits. He first appeared in Batman Shadow of the Bat #1 in summer of 1992, and is a serial killer with no consistent pattern. He just kills everybody. No traumatic past, no real motivation, he just does it for fun, making him most likely far too violent and dark of a character to feature on the 1990s Fox Kids programming block. In fact, according to the old BTAS fan site, The Unused Villains Database, all Paul Dini had to say about the possible inclusion of the character was no. In the gallery artwork tie-in to Batman No Man's Land in 1999, we got a peek at tie-in comic artist Craig Russo's interpretation of a what-if DCAU-style version of Mr. Zsasz. But additionally, we did get at least one hint that the dude does indeed exist in this universe, even if it was only for a fleeting second. In 2003, Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment released Batman Rise of Sinzu for Xbox, PlayStation 2, and the then-current Nintendo consoles. Though Zsasz didn't feature or even cameo in the video game itself, he did get a brief mention in the game's novelization, which our guy Maddie just recently discovered while reading through the book on Twitch, which is something he does every Thursday and you can follow at the link in the description, wink wink. In the Sinzu novel's opening prologue chapter, we get mentions of various Arkham Asylum inmates, including the Divided Man, the Plant Woman, the spindly creature who marks his kills upon his own body. Now, it's a bit up in the air whether or not this book is considered canon to the DCAU at large. Rise of Sinzu even had a digital comic sequel that definitely doesn't work with the cartoon continuity. But either way, hey, DCAU Victor Zsasz, that's pretty cool, right?
Oh, so Victor Zsasz is canon. Oh, that's awesome.
P.S. Have you ever noticed that the Question's name is Charles Victor Zsasz? Like, it's not spelled exactly the same, but what is up with that? I've never been able to figure this out. If you know, comment below and tell me what? Zsasz was also mentioned in the 2018 novel Harley Quinn Mad Love by Paul Dini and Pat Cadigan, but Maddie's still figuring out whether or not that's canon. Again, on Twitch every Thursday, because it's Thursday. The Reaper! There's a recurring discussion among Batman the Animated Series fans that the titular villain from the Batman Mask of the Phantasm movie was based on the design of our next subject, the Reaper, a one-off Batman rogue who debuted in June 1987's Detective Comics #575, and who does bear a striking resemblance to spooky old Phantasm. The skull mask, the cloak, the spiky scythe hand, it's all there. I see it, you see it. In his original appearance, this version of the Reaper was a vigilante protector of of Gotham City in DC Comics' 1950s, and became at odds with Green Lantern Alan Scott and kicked out of town, before resurfacing decades later and taking on Batman. I say this version because there was an earlier Reaper who looked exactly like the Grim Reaper in Batman comics from the 70s, but that's a different person, so leave me alone. The reason the Reaper appears on our list of villains today is because of a name drop in Batman's official biography from the New Batman Adventures, which reads, Batman's final case as a solo agent brought him face to face with Gotham's former protector, the bloodthirsty vigilante called the Reaper. With nothing else in this bio raising any red flags, it's safe to say this animated Batman did encounter the Reaper in his early days. Or is it safe to say that? Recently, Marcelo Milikai, one of the artists for our webcomic, Legacies of the DCAU, which you may have recently heard about via Screen Rant and the first several issues of which you can also find linked below, made us aware of the fact that a lot of these old Warner Brothers sanctioned biographies were ripped straight out of the 90s Who's Who in the DC Universe books that were published to aid readers in understanding the world of the mainstream DC Comics. Like, look at them side by side. 2 terrible moments forever changed the life of Bruce Wayne, blah blah blah. But interestingly, some of the stuff from this original text was removed for the animated series version, like how Joe Chill, the killer of Bruce Wayne's parents, helped Batman defeat the Reaper, or how the mantle of Robin was eventually passed to Jason Todd, who we know doesn't exist in this universe. Oh. So the fact that they kept the Reaper mentioned in Batman's bio says something to me. The dude did exist, even if only acknowledged this one tiny time. And as for the similarities to Phantasm, well, according to Alan Burnett, writer and producer for BTAS and Mask of the Phantasm, this was never intentional, mostly for legal purposes when dealing with character rights owned by Mike W. Barr, who wrote Reaper's debut in Batman Year 2. The Scythe Hand was even added very late in the character design process after going through a decent handful of possible looks. Alan Burnett says Phantasm was more based on the Spider-Man villain Mysterio than anything. But Mike W. Barr is pretty sure they ripped him off, so I hope my angel of death awaits me soon. I mean, I can understand the Phantasm Reaper confusion. Phantasm is even compared to the Grim Reaper in the character's style guide turnaround, and called a Grim Reaper in the BTAS guidebook. Ugh. We went ahead and commissioned a What If DCAU Reaper character design from Tim Levins, artist for the New Batman Adventures tie-in comic Gotham Adventures. So I'll leave that on screen for a few more seconds for you to enjoy. It's pretty dope. I like it. I like Tim Levins. You should follow him on Instagram and stuff. Many more hidden villains to come. Man, I wish there was a better alliteration for that. Right after this quick break. Don't change that channel. Home Improvement. We'll be right back. Lady Shiva! If you're a fan of the Young Justice cartoon, you're probably familiar with Sandra Wu San, or Lady Shiva as she's better known. Debuting in the pages of Richard Dragon Kung Fu Fighter back in 1976, Lady Shiva's character has evolved over the decades from martial artist anti-hero to League of Assassins assassin, and she's often considered one of the top fighters in DC Comics mythos, next to Batman, Black Canary, and others. The League of Assassins was introduced into the world of Batman the Animated Series in 1998 via Gotham Adventures number 6, and later in more depth in issue number 9, led by the Sensei. This group is not to be confused with the Society of Assassins, which included Karare in Batman Beyond, nor is it the Society of Shadows, the mysterious agency run by Ra's al Ghul, whose live-action Liam Neeson adaptation headed The League of Shadows. And in the older comics, the Sensei was typically Ra's al Ghul's father, though that doesn't seem to be the case in the DCAU. I hate all of this. Lady Shiva's minuscule reference came in the 2017 animated film Batman and Harley Quinn.
Hey, thanks again for helping us out with that League of Assassins thing in Nanda Parbat. Oof, that Lady Shiva. Wouldn't say no to a slice of that pie, know what I mean?
Though the League of Assassins have been more or less DCAU canon since those Gotham Adventures issues, this was the first time they got a mention on screen. Top tier canon, people! And with Lady Shiva among their ranks, and perhaps even leading them now in this universe, it's officially on my list of quick references to things that happened off screen that I'd almost like to see more than the main plot of the thing I am watching. It's right up there with Black Widow and Hawkeye in Budapest, Anakin and Obi-Wan falling into that nest of Gundarks, and...
Remember that time Poison Ivy nearly smothered us in those vines? The with the really sharp thorns?
Yes.
You know that Ranthanagar War video that Ted and I did where we speculate what might have happened in that off-screen event? Maybe we should do one of those about this Lady Shiva reference too. In the letters to the editor column of Batman Adventures number 25, you know, the one with mullet Superman, a fan asked if Lady Shiva and Huntress in question would ever appear in the comic, to which editor Scott Peterson replied, "No solid plans, although artist Rick Burchett's begging for one of them." And Huntress won that coin toss. Lady Shiva will be showing up in 2021 in Bruce Timm's newest animated feature, Batman Soul of the Dragon. So at least we'll finally get the chance to see her in his art style, unless you count her one single headshot from Superman and Batman magazine number 4, which I do not. The Reverse Flash! Probably the most popular Flash rogue, since he's literally an evil Flash with an inverted color scheme, the Star Trek Mirror Universe goatee equivalent of a DC supervillain. Eobard Thawne was an enthusiast of the Silver Age Flash, Barry Allen, in DC Comics lore back in the 1960s. Thawne existed hundreds of years in the future, reconstructed his face to look like Barry's, and attempted to recreate the lightning bolt / chemical accident that created the Flash to give himself super speed. But of course, as is commonplace with villain origins, things went doo-doo and he wound up a bad guy instead, traveling back in time to become Barry Allen's arch nemesis. That's the extremely long story short version, because I could talk about the history of the Reverse Flash, aka Professor Zoom, but not the Zoom, for a whole series of videos, but ain't nobody got time for that. In the DC animated universe, we never really learned much about Wally West's Flash origin besides a 5-second hallucination flashback thing that showed him being struck by lightning in a lab. There was no Flash the Animated Series. There was only even really one episode dedicated to the dude's expanded universe at all. JLU's final season story, Flash and Substance. Here we saw the Flash Museum, which included displays of dozens of past Flash adventures, something Maddie just did a video on a few weeks ago. And on one of the walls, there was this fun little Easter egg, Reverse Flash's logo. Now typically this thing is, well, reversed, mirror flipped to be backwards from the normal Flashes. But it wasn't originally, so it is what it is. Since we have no evidence yet of Barry Allen existing as the Flash in the DCAU, it's a bit odd that Eobard Thawne might exist, unless he's a Wally West superfan in the future instead, which would explain why my boy Tim Levin's design for him for Capstone looks just basically like an evil Wally, except that's based on his original Barry Allen design that he's admitted looks too much like Wally and actually redid after we coaxed him into it. So should Reverse Flash look like this now? I don't know, but what I do know is that Thawne was alluded to via a Brainiac duplicate of the Justice Lord's Flash in JLU's Divided We Fall, and also appeared for realsies in Justice League Adventures number 6 among an entire crowd of supervillains, all there to bid on a time-trapped trinity. This Thawne took visual cues from a variety of versions of Reverse Flash, including the OG non-reversed symbol and the dead black eyes of Hunter Zolomon, better known as Zoom. And the character appeared in this Attack of Professor Zoom Capstone Flash book, written by DCAU tie-in comic writer and friend of the channel, Matthew Manning. On top of all that, there's also the character of Cadmus's Dr. Thawne in the Hush Beyond Earth 12 comics, so all things considered, and all timelines available to the dude, he might be out there somewhere. Maybe he's responsible for Barry Allen not being the Flash in the DCAU, or for the Lost Years being expanded by a year or two in Batman The Adventures Continue. Amos Fortune! Look, comic book villains from the 60s were goofy. Example, half or more of the bad guys from the Adam West Batman show. Were you ever truly threatened by King Tut or Egghead? The Justice League cartoon was full of these characters, but almost every time the DCAU crew managed to find a way to keep them as menacing as possible. Even the more gaudy and over-the-top ones like Gorilla Grodd or Eclipso, who was meta to the point of just being a dude who wanted to get the League's attention by dressing up in a colorful costume. Granted, he was possessed by ancient snake monsters, but that's not the point. The point is, some villains were just too cheesy to make work. So it's no surprise Amos Fortune only got a call out as the name of a Las Vegas casino in the JL episode Wild Cards.
While they duke it out, let's go over to Amos Fortune's Casino and Resort, where Green Lantern has found another bomb.
Amos Fortune was traditionally a gang leader who discovered he could manipulate people's luck glands, changing how lucky they were and profiting off gambling operations. He actually created the very first Royal Flush Gang, a theme we see present in the Wild Cards episode, and battled the League on a few other occasions, once appropriately alongside the villainous Roulette, and even went by the name Wild Card at one point. But like, look at the guy. He invented the Stimuluck machine and the Dismemorizator. Would you really have wanted to see him on the show? Okay, yeah, me too. Hitman! No, not the bald barcode stamped Agent 47, you silly. This DC Comics Hitman first appeared as a foil for Etrigan the Demon in The Demon Annual No. 2 in late 1993. Tommy Monahan is a hitman who showed up in Gotham City to assassinate a crime family before running into a group of 7 spinal fluid feasting alien vampires and joining forces with Etrigan to take them down. The encounter left him with mild telepathic powers, now able to hunt his prey with superhuman tracking skills. And he went on to star in his own 60-issue comic series, eventually dying in a blaze of glory against an evil CIA agent. His DC Animated Universe counterpart seems to have met a much less exciting end, as mentioned by Stephen Mandragora in the Justice League Unlimited episode Double Date.
I believe that individual passed beyond the veil at the hands of one Tommy Monahan, who himself later mistakenly fell onto a train track, I am told.
Hitman isn't necessarily a villain per se. He even teamed up with the JLA a few times in the 90s, but as kind of a more comedic version of the Punisher, I'm gonna say he's close enough. Black Adam! Before we know it, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson himself will be starring in a live-action Black Adam feature film. But the Captain Marvel, or Shazam, nemesis dates all the way back to Fawcett Comics' Marvel Family No. 1, December 1945. Black Adam is essentially the polar opposite of everything Captain Marvel stands for, comprised of God-given powers rivaling those of the Big Red Cheese, and has played his part in many prominent DC Comics stories over the years, like Forever Evil and 52. Black Adam has even appeared in animation, in Batman the Brave and the Bold, Justice League Action, Harley Quinn, and the 2010 short film Superman Shazam: The Return of Black Adam, which featured several voice actors from the DC Animated Universe. But his reference in the DCAU came in the antepenultimate, that means third to last, episode of Justice League Unlimited Ancient History, which gave us the full backstory of Katar and Shiera Hall, hawk people from the planet Thanagar who were accidentally stranded in ancient Egypt and became worshipped as deities, and who would eventually be reincarnated as Earth archaeologist Carter Hall and Thanagarian hero Hawkgirl, respectively. Upon arriving from the country of Kahndaq, military leader Bashari, eventually reincarnated as Green Lantern John Stewart, mentions,
"As tribute, Teth Adam sends 100 of the finest stallions on Earth."
Teth Adam was the son of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, the immortal alter ego of Black Adam. So this random name drop is, again, the closest we ever got to seeing this character in the animated universe. But Black Adam did appear in a few 90s DCAU style coloring books, and eventually got an action figure as part of Mattel's JLU line in the early 2000s, with character design by DC Animated tie-in comic artist Chris Jones, who we have had the pleasure of interviewing twice here on the channel. Links to those videos are also below. Everything's below, just go look at all the things. Chris Jones also designed the Wizard Shazam and other members of the Marvel family for this action figure line. And the Black Adam design was eventually usurped for his appearances in the Capstone line of JLU-style children's novels, adapted into a more streamlined character sheet by, well, would you look at that? Tim Levins again. What a scoundrel. Did I mention you should follow him on Instagram? Harv Hickman's party guests! We're nearing the end here, so I wanted to wrap this around and cover at least 3 more in one, which are all references slapped onto guests of a Halloween costume party in the Justice League episode A Night of Shadows. There are a lot of fun Easter eggs among the costumes in this scene, like the Batman and Bat-villains that were featured in the musical stage play in Batman Beyond's Out of the Past, including that Batman doing the Adam West Batusi dance, a couple of ripoffs of other Justice Leaguers, Maxi Zeus, Luminous, a bunch of stuff. But the ones that stand out for our purposes today include Dr. Bedlam. Created by the legendary Jack Kirby for his Mr. Miracle title in 1971, Dr. Bedlam was a member of Darkseid's elite, among characters featured in Superman the Animated Series and Justice League, like Granny Goodness, Kanto, and Vermin Wunderbar. Bedlam is actually a being of pure energy that inhabits various animates of his own creation, artificial automaton bodies. Within these, he has superhuman strength and accelerated healing, and can control up to 6 of his animates at once. Though we never see the real Dr. Bedlam in the DCAU, we do see a variety of robotic soldiers in the JLU episode The Ties That Bind, so maybe he's pulling the strings just off camera. Another Darkseid-linked baddie on display at this party is Devilance the Pursuer, a master hunter of Apocalypse who was hired by Darkseid to track and destroy the Forever People, a team of teenage new gods from New Genesis, who we got cameos of in the later JL episode Twilight. Devlins debuted in late 1972 in Forever People number 11, and was last seen in the 2006 52 series, where he pursued Adam Strange, Animal Man, and Starfire. And lastly from this bunch, the Phantom of the Sewers. Not linked to Darkseid or Apocalypse in any way, Farley Fairfax was a famous stage actor whose girlfriend suspected him of cheating and performed witchcraft on him that hideously deformed his once handsome face. Fairfax fled into the night but returned years later and stole the Sword of Merlin from Jason Blood's apartment, and kidnapped Blood's girlfriend. Funny enough, he didn't realize Jason Blood could transform into a fire-breathing demon and found that out the hard way. The Phantom of the Sewers only appeared in 3 total issues of the Demon comic, so this is 100% the most deep-cut reference I have ever had the pleasure of relaying to you fine people. Before we get to our final point of interest, here are some honorable mentions that didn't quite make my pseudo top 10 list, mostly because they all technically did appear, but just kind of less than goodly. Professor Ivo was quite the big bad throughout the comic book history of the Justice League, but only barely made an appearance in the cartoon, as a limp dead hand hanging out of a hospice bed and/or pile of dirt. He was mentioned several times when characters ever spoke of Amazo, the superpower replicating android of his creation, but otherwise only appeared in a kid's book titled Justice League: The One-Man Justice League, and a coloring book that utilized the same artwork in a rather generic mad scientist depiction. Captain Marvel nemesis Dr. Sivana more or less appeared as the character The Chemist in the BTAS episode Batgirl Returns. Basically a new character, but modeled after the short, bald Sivana's classic look, originally penciled by director Dan Reba as literally Sivana. Dr. Sivana also appeared in a fold-out poster from Superman and Batman magazine, and alongside Black Adam in those same 90s coloring books. Made famous by the Christopher Reeve films, Superman adversary General Zod never made a full animated appearance, but did star in Superman Adventures number 21, also known as Supergirl Adventures. Freed from the Phantom Zone by Granny Goodness, where he did battle with Supergirl, and later in Justice League Unlimited number 34, where he, along with an army of evil Kryptonians including Jax-Ur and Mala, fought the Justice League and a super weakened Superman. He also made appearances in Capstone's Superman and the Showdown at Saturn, and the Justice League Unlimited Mix and Match activity book from Studio Fun, both again alongside Jax-Ur and Mala, as well as a Bruce Timm-style alternate universe version as Superman's father in the Justice League Gods and Monsters animated movie. Though we don't know if he truly exists in the canon DCAU, he was also name-dropped in JLU's For the Man Who Has Everything as Little Zod, a friend of Superman's hallucination son, Van, who may either be Zod in kid form or the son of the actual Zod. We have no way of telling. But this was just a dream and not real. But then where did Superman's brain get the name Zod from? Let's just try not to think too hard about this one. Chemo was a villain from the 60s Metal Men comics that was a skyscraper-sized mass of chemicals created by an evil scientist. Ain't it always the way? In Justice League, we got a very chemo-like entity in the episode Metamorphosis, where Simon Stagg's consciousness was inadvertently merged with, well, a bunch of chemicals, which took sentient form and were controlled by a sort of subconscious link to Stagg's comatose, hospitalized body. It was chemo in nature, but not in name. Though the real chemo did appear in the unaired Justice League pilot animation in Battle with John Jones, and in the 2020 Capstone DC Superheroes book, Superman and the Toxic Troublemaker. And the Thorians. Kilowog mentions them in the second episode of Justice League. He says that Jon Stewart saved him from them. Just listen.
And the Thorians would have got me for sure, if it hadn't been for Jon Stewart.
Is this a Mass Effect reference? No, that didn't come out till 6 years later. I have no further information. And now, our final hidden villain is O.J. Simpson. What, Johnny Cochran appeared twice and was referenced a third. You don't think that means OJ's out there somewhere? But seriously, Mr. X and Zombie World. Now you're probably like, really, James? You saved this for the climactic finale? I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. And if that's not what you said, then you are legally obligated to leave a comment below to tell me how smart you are. Mr. X was a series published throughout the 1980s by Canadian company Vortex Comics, created by Dean Motter and Paul Ravoche, the latter of which did background art for many of the DCAU DCAU shows. The title character, Mr. X, invents a drug called insomnolin to remain awake for 24 hours a day while he attempts to save his city against a Dick Tracy-style rogues gallery. In the episode Knight Time of Superman the Animated Series, after Superman dresses up as Batman due to Bruce Wayne going missing, he and Robin meet Commissioner Gordon on the roof of the police department, where Gordon hands Super Batman a photo of Bane exiting an airplane. But curiously, also aboard that plane was a very Mr. X-looking fella, seen right here. Now, for years this remained a fun little standalone Easter egg. That is, until I showed this screenshot to series director Dan Reba, who promptly hypothesized the identities of even more cameos in this same photograph. Two of the other passengers heavily resemble main characters from the late 90s Dark Horse comic Zombie World, specifically Major Damson and Roman, members of a supernatural task force who, well, they fought zombies and demons and that kind of stuff. Zombie World was written and often cover penciled by Mike Mignola, creator of Hellboy, who also designed Mr. Freeze's look for Batman the Animated Series. Now, yes, neither set of these cameo characters are really villains, but they're not really your garden variety heroes either. And with their less than saintly moralities and ties to otherworldly stories, it felt best to include them here rather than in some sort of hidden background extras video, though that could be fun too. Among various other cameos in the form of background characters, it's clear the DCAU team had a passion for less mainstream comics and found clever, sneaky ways of incorporating them into their cartoons. Though I'd say for copyright reasons, this isn't really Mr. X or the Zombie World gang or like MODOK. But that's all I got for you today. Did I miss anybody? If you've spotted any other deep cut references to villains in a DCAU episode or movie, let me know down below. If you want to see more videos like this pointing out trivia and Easter eggs from the DC animated universe, click the playlist that just popped up right there, and be prepared for a lot of egg baby sound effects. And don't forget to check us out on Twitch every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for comic and book readings, video game playthroughs, and other general DCAU nonsense over on twitch.tv/DCAU Watchtower. This video and every video is brought to you by our lovely Patreon supporters. If you'd like to help support us, check us out at patreon.com/DCAU Watchtower, where you can get access to early videos, entry into exclusive Zoom calls with us, custom artwork, and tons more. And if you're new here and don't want to give us any money, understandably, there's always the big red free subscribe button, which is a more than appreciated way to support us. Still trucking to 100,000. Thanks for watching, and I'll see ya in whatever the hell the next video is that I host in not 2020.